Good afternoon. On behalf of the university, I would like to welcome you here. I'm Vartan Gregorian, the president of the American University of Armenia. This is a very special day for us because we're hosting two great men of education. And we thought the best way to take advantage of their visits is to come to know them better. So I will start by reading very brief biographies of both men, and then I will ask questions from their life, from different parts of their life, and we will learn. They don't know the questions. I have not really told them what the questions are, but they relate to their life from childhood all the way to their present careers. So, in chronological order, I'm guessing, Mihran will go first. Mihran Agbabian is President Emeritus of the American University of Armenia and Professor Emeritus of Engineering at the University of Southern California. He had his consulting engineering firm, Agbabian Associates, for 20 years before joining USC as chairman of the Civil and Environmental Engineering Department. He received his Master of Science in Engineering from California Institute of Technology in 1948, and he has his PhD in Engineering from the University of California at Berkeley in 1951. Agbabian is an elected member of the U.S. National Academy of Engineering and the National Academy of Sciences of Armenia. He received his Ellis Island Medal of Honor in 1995. He has received the Saad Mesrop Medal from His Holiness Karakim I, Catholicos of all Armenians, the Saint Mesrop Medal from His Holiness Aram I, Catholicos of the See of Cilicia, and the Saint Vartan Medal from His Holiness John Peter XVIII, Catholicos of Armenian Catholic Church. In 2001, he received the Moses Horonasi Medal from the President of the Republic of Armenia for his contributions to educational development. Vartan Gregorian is the 12th president of Carnegie Corporation of New York, a grant-making institution founded by Andrew Carnegie in 1911. Prior to that, he served as president of Brown University, president of the New York Public Library, Terzian Professor of History, Dean of the Faculty of Arts and Sciences, and Provost of the University of Pennsylvania. He received his PhD in History and Humanities from Stanford University in 1964. Gregorian is the author of The Road to Home, My Life and Times, Islam, a Mosaic, Not a Monolith, and the Emergence of Modern Afghanistan, 1880 to 1946. In addition to receiving over 70 honorary degrees, he has been awarded the Ellis Island Medal of Honor and the American Academy of the Institute of Arts and Letters Gold Medal for service to the arts. In 1998, President Clinton awarded him the National Humanities Medal. In 2004, President Bush awarded him the Medal of Freedom, the nation's highest civil award. In 2009, President Obama appointed him to the White House Fellowship Commission. Now my first question is to both of you, and I will ask Mihran to start. I want to ask you to just tell us about where you were born, some highlights from your childhood, and your early education years.
Do I start?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Not quite.
Yes.
A bit louder.
Probably about 7 to that. Well, I'll start this evening's discussions, so maybe it is going to be a novel way of communicating, and we may surprise you from time to time. Let me say that the first question is a simple one to answer. I was born in Cyprus, the island of Cyprus, and I grew up there until I was 9 years old. Then we moved to Aleppo, Syria, where I studied in the American high school, and then I moved to Beirut, Lebanon, and continued my education at the American University of Beirut, AUB. I must say a bit before I pass it to Dr. Gregorian that the American University of Beirut in some ways was an inspiration for me when I was thinking of establishing the American University of Armenia with my colleagues.
Maybe you can use that. Let's go without that to see.
I was born in Tabriz, Iran, in Dinabad district of Tabriz. I went first to Armenian, I guess one of them we have to do. I went to Armenian school in Tabriz, and then when during the Soviet period, and when we studied, we finished everything, Soviets left, Iranian authorities came, they said all our degrees were null and void. We had to learn Persian, official language of Iran, but we had to receive our degrees during occupation by Soviet forces. So my friends and I, and one my friend and my brother-in-law now from those days, we were all shocked for fly-by-night operation schools or regular schools would validate and teach us Persian. So we did, and unfortunately our school was next to house of prostitution, which I believe, but we managed to, anyway, survive. Now, in later, I went to Lebanon, thanks to encouragement of Prince Vice Consul Edgar Maloyan, and then went to Jemaran, where I had no knowledge of English, Arabic, or French, with little Russian, Persian, and Armenian. That was not sufficient, and first speaking Turkish at the time, it was not sufficient to be schooled. I was told that I would not be able to learn French in 1 year, and I did. But anyway, that's a long story, you have to read the book. But my secondary education was in Lebanon. Then Jemaran had one fellowship only every other year, and I received that fellowship. And my high school wonderful teacher, English teacher, sir, filled my applications because I did not know how to write. And the two universities, Berkeley and Stanford, both of them accepted. Stanford sent airmail, Berkeley sent surface mail, and I ended up at Stanford. I had no knowledge of private, public, all that sort of those. And then the rest is history.
Mihran, tell us how, after finishing AUB, how you arrived in the United States and what you had in your pocket when you arrived.
Well, first let me say that I was planning to go to England. And because I was born in Cyprus, I applied for a university known as Brighton College in England. And I was accepted. In fact, I was accepted with full scholarship, travel to the country, and also a place to stay, room and board. I was holding that ticket in my hand when I realized that I would rather come to the United States. And I was very anxious to apply to a number of schools, and Caltech accepted me, California Institute of Technology. So I went to the British Council and gave them my ticket to the boat, and I said, I'm sorry, I'm not coming to England, I'm going to the United States. So that's how I came to the United States. But since I did not have any scholarship, and that probably answered your question, I came to New York with $100 in my pocket, of which $50 I gave as tips to the people that helped us in the boat, some sailors who were coming around expecting tips from us. So when I landed in New York, I had $50. Do you want me to?
How did you survive?
What? Some of you may know about the Armenian Missionary Association of America. Their office at that time was New York. So I went to the executive director, Reverend Vartan, and I said, I have $100 and I don't have any place to go. Can you help? And he said, I cannot give you a loan from the Armenian Association, but I can give you a loan from my own that's more legitimate. So I got a loan from him, which also paid for my train ticket to Los Angeles. So when I got to Los Angeles, I found out that I had an aunt living in Los Angeles area, and she gave me room and board, provided I paid her back. Now, when I was making some money as a student, I was using that student kind of help for my personal needs. Then I said to him, to her husband, how much do I owe you? He said, you don't owe me anything, but I have an aunt who lives in Argentina, and every month I send her $25. So from now on, you send her the $25. So I ended up paying $25 a month for I don't know how long.
Marvelous. Vartan, when you were in Gemma, somehow you ended up being the eyes of Simon Brazian, the last Prime Minister of the Republic of Armenia. Tell us how this happened and how this influenced your life.
Well, when I arrived in Beirut, Lebanon, I had 3 lectures, and I've got to give this background, written by Edgar Maloyan. One was to College Armenia. Second one was Colonel Lahoud, Internal Security Forces of Lebanon, with whom he had been during the Vichy period in charge of Lebanon, as a French colonial power. Third one was Hotel Lux in Beirut. So I thought all my expenses were taken care of. I was admitted. I arrived before Levon Shant, who was director of the College Armenia, a Leipzig-educated, great Armenian writer with monocle, very cold person. He said, do you know English? No. Do you know French? No. Do you know Arabic? No. Do you have money? No. What are you doing here? I said, I don't know, they sent me. So then Hotel Lux, I found Hotel Lux very difficult to find because I thought it was so luxurious, people would know where it is. They did not know it was, oh yeah, they go to the middle of the city and get up, climb on the roof, first roof, there's 2 beds, 3 beds are available. So I'm mentioning this so you know what the central role Brazian played. And Mr. Shant did not know what to do with me. Thanks to Armenian Relief Society, I was given a room, which was size of maybe this 2 tables. And then also Australians had come to Lebanon, 2 Australian brothers, one served, one cooked. And the meal, Armenian Relief Society gave $6 a month. And I had 2 meals a day, 5 days, but not 7 days. So in the middle of all of this, Shant died. Thank God I did not like my French teacher, Madame Yolande, because she said you'll never learn French in 1 year. And because she said no, I gave her such a hard time. So I was already ready for battle. I got Grammaire la Russe du XXe siècle. Each time she gave an instruction of grammar, I said 17th century, Jean Racine used the following exception. Victor Hugo used thoroughfare. I drove her nuts, she drove me nuts, but I learned enough French. And then, thank God, Vartan came after his chance, and he had eye operation in New York, and it did not work. So I became his, person who read all his confidential mail, wrote his letters, and then also, as he dictated to, as I read, correct manuscripts and so forth, including his memoirs, The Road to Home. That's what I got in the pathways of life. Well, it was wonderful because as Vartan came, he appointed me as assistant principal or assistant to the head, boarding school director. It was a funny way of providing me food and room. But then I did not know what to do, so Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. Because I was too proud to say, and I got very upset against my stomach, by the way. As the spoiled person insists for food, what kind of terrible creature you are, and so forth. But then Vartan, because I could not see in Armenian families, 3 Armenian families from Iran, used to invite him for dinner weekends. So they found a rare form to help me by saying, Vartan's eyes are bad, could you accompany him to our home? We're afraid he may stumble. So every week, 3 times a week, I ate at these 3 wonderful families' home by helping Vartan go. And Vartan was very, very influential in my life because when I graduated from Collège Arménien with honors, I could tell you, so I did not loaf around for that. I gave valedictory speech, which was 10 minutes, I think, instead of 2 minutes. Because I was old, than others, I 9 of us were graduating that year, I picked a topic that I did not know much to impress the audience, that unlike this other 8, I'm much more knowledgeable, much more seasoned, etc. But then he was unhappy with me. And I'm telling this because it's good how good teachers can do it. He said, I'm going to tell you a story you'll never forget in your life. As you see, I forgot to sing it. The Archbishop would give such lengthy sermons, Sundays, that congregation would leave his seat talking. But one day, he said, the doorman came to him, said, Archbishop, when you finish, would you mind to lock up the door? So I got it. Don't talk too much. The second one was better than that. He said, this painter with a life-size portrait gave this exhibition, and somebody came and said, are you the painter? Yes. Shoelaces are not made that way. So the painter said, what's your profession? So I'm a shoemaker. So he picked up the brush and fixed the shoes. Then he said, I don't like the mustache. And the person said, painter, please do not rise above the shoe. That's the best lesson I received in my life. Namely, not to talk about subjects I don't know, and not to belabor on the point which I did while waiting for the first time. So thank you.
Mihran, you received your Masters of Science in Structural Engineering or Structural Mechanics from Caltech in 1948. Then you went to Berkeley, University of California at Berkeley, for your PhD in structural engineering. There was no PhD program in structural engineering. Tell us the story of how that happened.
Well, of course, I did not know that there was no option for studying structural engineering for a PhD at Berkeley, but during the spring vacation, I got enough money to go by train to Berkeley and find out about the university. So when I went there, I was walking through the laboratory, and somebody came forward and said, you look like a stranger, can I help you? I said, yes, you can. I don't know anything about the civil engineering, structural engineering department here. Can you tell me something about it? Oh, he said, I'm one of the professors. I'll tell you all about it. So I said, not all, but just tell me if there is a structural mechanics option for a PhD. He said, I'm sorry, there isn't. But it's about time that we have it, he said. Come with me to the chairman. So we walked together to the chairman, and the chairman said, I'm sorry, it takes a lot of time and effort to start another option, like structural mechanics. Well, but I will try, he said. So with that information, I returned to Caltech. I figured if Berkeley doesn't accept me, I will continue at Caltech for my PhD. But believe it or not, I received a letter from the chairman saying, I have happy news for you. We are starting a PhD program in structural mechanics, and you are the first student. Some years later, maybe more than 20 years later, 25 years later, Berkeley honored me as one of their graduates, and this was announced to the public that the department added the structural mechanics option because of me as a first student. And since then, we have graduates from that department like Professor Der Kiureghian and many others like him who have made that department one of the most prominent departments in the United States.
So you're the yes. So indeed, Mihran is the first PhD graduate in structural engineering, structural mechanics in my department. And his Professor Igor Popov, a Russian man, very famous professor, he became my colleague for many years. And he would tell this story on many occasions. My next question, Vartan, is how did you manage to get your Bachelor of Arts with honors from Stanford in 2 years? Normally that would take 4 years. How did you manage? And Wikipedia says you have a dual PhD in History and Humanities. What does dual PhD mean?
It makes two. Okay, let me tell you. When I got Stanford, they had never received any application from College Armenia. So first of all, it came of college, and then they saw that I gotten 2 years of Armenology. Not only I finished College Armenia with honors, but also was one of the first classes that College Armenia, Armenology, Armenian studies. Catholicos Carnegie II was one of my teachers who taught church story. Agbabian taught the diplomatic history, and Yevyayan taught about ancient Armenian history. So it was a great experience. I listed some of these courses. They gave 4 credits to some of them. But then I had not realized, really, that I had so much energy and so much staying power. And also remember, if you're poor, you have to study. I had no recreation money, nothing, zilch. So the cheapest way I kept traveling the world were novels. I have traveled France, England, United States, all over through literature. So I loved what I was doing. And I took maximum summer schools, as well as full course, as well as in some exceeding, because professor thought I would not be able to pay tuition, allowed me to take extra reading course. Now, I was fortunate when I arrived at Stanford because Ford Foundation had established Humanities Honors Program. In addition, majoring in history, there are 5 other fields were provided to give general education to you. It was classics, art history, religion, English, and then you had also comparative literature. All of of these enhanced my general knowledge. And then graduate school had the same thing. Again, you had to finish your PhD in history, but also in 5 different fields. So I did that too. So it took a little longer PhD because I passed each of these exams. So I'm fortunate that Stanford I got expertise in history but general knowledge in humanities, which has been the best thing that's happened. It's easy to be narrow specialist, but not knowing what you need to fix. So I learned what needs to be fixed, who can fix it, and why you have to fix it. And all of these things, Stanford gave me a great education. Second, this university may be able to provide the students that every teacher I took course from, they became my mentors, every one of them. They want me to succeed desperately. It became their challenge to see me succeed. Because I've always believed, as a result of them, that students don't fail, teachers fail. Because in every student, there is something you have to be able to get into in order to awaken their love for learning. And my teachers, every one of them had invited me to their home, every single of them. And every one of them wrote recommendations for me whenever the case came. So I was fortunate that all my life, strangers have acted as father figures for me, like Grazian, initially. Somebody in Tabriz gave his deed to police, guaranteeing that I would return. His house deed, no relation to me. Somebody, when I arrived in New York, in Palo Alto, Armenian family, they introduced me to local Armenian community. When I was lonely, I joined the choir of Armenian church in San Francisco, and the deacon, well, not deacon, or altar, well, there. The church sustained me. When I landed in New York, I had a letter to stay with an Armenian I had never met. He was the laundry director of Taft Hotel, who took me to Long Island, to his home, for 3 nights. I'd never met him, and we never met again. And then, to give another example, when I was landed in New York, on my way to Stanford, I'm saying this because I valued the importance of the money at the time. I had one check to Stanford University. I had attached it here, not to lose, and some money. And then guess what? I lost my ticket from New York to San Francisco. I waited all day. I did not also. This is one of the things for the students. I was too ashamed to ask, I don't know. So I pretended I knew how to fly. It was the first time I flew, second time I was flying. And then, guess what happened? The ticket taker of Transworld Airlines felt so sorry for me because what do I do if I lost your ticket? Don't worry, so you can put advertising in the paper, and if nobody finds it, then they'll give you a refund. I said, tomorrow I have to be at Stanford. And I was there angry at myself, and he had pity for me. So he stamped the envelope, but no ticket in it. Said, don't get out of the plane. He checked my luggage and stamped, and sent me from New York to Kansas City, Chicago, all over. Every time the stewardess came, do you want to? Oh, no. I said, I don't feel well. I have to stay here. But, so I valued Stanford education because it was so hard. I never took the person's name either. 2 years later, I went, spent all day at the airport trying to find this man so I could thank him. As a result, I only could thank him in my book about his generosity. So Stanford, I finished on time with honors, all undergraduate and graduate. And I'm glad I did it. And besides, I would have gone to Berkeley. Tuition at Stanford was $1956, $750. Berkeley was $50. And Berkeley people were complaining it was too much, $50 at the time. So that's how.
Now, when I finished my PhD University of Illinois in 1975. At that time, Agbabian Associates was one of the most highly respected firms in earthquake engineering. Of course, it belonged to you, you were the CEO. As a student, I dreamed of becoming an employee of that company. And in fact, I applied. And I received a very polite letter from Jim Anderson, or your vice president, who said how impressed he was with my CV, but there was no need for me there. So then, eventually, I got an offer from USC, University of Southern California. As a part of my negotiations with the department, I got a promise that they would secure a one-day-a-week consulting in Agbabian Associates. And so in January of 76, I visited you remember, and one day a week I would spend, that's when we met, 1976. Now, in early 1980s, I think 1984 maybe, you sold your company and became the chairman of the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering at USC. This move from industry to academia is quite rare, and you did it. And I must say USC benefited a lot. Their program advanced a lot. Tell us a little about how this transition from industry to academia and how it happened, and were there challenges? How did you address it?
I realized that sometime during the years when I was, presiding over a company, that my main interest is in education. And I said, why wouldn't it be if I could do the two things at the same time? Like continue my work in Agbabian Associates and also find a job at some university. Well, that's exactly the way it came about, because at USC, there was a professor whom I knew, Sami Masri, and he recommended that I be hired. But it turned out that at that time, the chairman of the Civil and Environmental Engineering had resigned, and there was no one taking that position. So when Masri recommended me for a job at USC, they said, we wonder if this person can handle that job as chairman of the Civil and Environmental Engineering. And they said, we'll interview him. So I went for an interview, and when they realized that I was presiding over a company, they said, what are you doing here? Do you know what it means to become a faculty member at USC? It's nothing like what you're doing in private business. I said, yes, I know, but I'd like to get back into education. So they said, okay, we have this opening, we'll ask the committee to evaluate you, and then we'll make a decision. So I got this happy news that they wanted me as chairman of the Civil and Environmental Engineering. Now, what do I do with my company? So that was a major decision. Interestingly, I continued both jobs at the same time for a while until the time came when there was a buyer of the company, and I sold the company and then remained a full-time faculty member. But then something else developed which took a lot of my time, which I may talk about later.
Of course, we know what that is. We'll get to that. Vartan, in 1972, you moved from the University of Texas at Austin to the University of Pennsylvania to take on the position of Terzian Professor of Armenian and Caucasian History. 1.5 years later, you were appointed as the Dean of Faculty of Arts and Sciences, which comprised almost half of the university. At the time, you had no significant experience in academic administration, not even a department chair. How did this happen, going from Terzian Professor of Armenian and Caucasian history to becoming Dean of Arts and Sciences in such a short time?
I don't know. Miracles happen. Honestly, I was very surprised because I was member of the search committee to find the dean. And at the end, which was headed by Nobel Prize winner physicist Schiffer. And I was surprised. But then, throughout my life, I've done always unexpected. Part of it was due to ignorance, how important this job, difficult this job was. Had I known, I would not have taken. But to bring 5 different schools together without any incident, and so I thought I became paranoid. They maybe appointed me so I could fail. They blame me for the unification. Because it was a very big political thing at the time. But I knew about human psychology, and I loved faculty, I loved education, and my love for education was translated into trust by faculty and my capacity doing it. Wherever I have taught, wherever I have been, I have enjoyed complete trust of faculty and students. They have been always behind me because I was not fighting for me. I had battles galore with Dean of Wharton School, dear friend of mine, and others, about resources, how much to go to arts and sciences and how much to go to Wharton Business School, which is one of the great business schools. But at the end, succeeded. And not only succeeded, but also humor helped. For example, there was, I guess in the book I have written, if not, I don't know what, I have not read my book, by the way. So there's a campaign for University of Pennsylvania, $255 million campaign. 1 year, we had 1 year to unify, that is 72, 2 years to create the entire Faculty of Arts and Sciences, be prepared for a plan for the future, because university was going to announce a $255 million campaign. We're the largest faculty, largest student number, lowest endowment. So I go to the campaign, and it's like sitting all the corporate leaders and so forth. So they start reading names. Jacqueline Onassis, that's a case actually. Dental school. Walter Cohen handles the dental problem. Veterinary school, somebody. Mihran's dog has been taken care of by Dean of Veterinary School. Therefore, case for veterinary school. Somebody engineering, somebody business, somebody medicine, somebody law. So I raised my hand and said, do they have any mentally ill people? So what are you talking about? Because everybody has a business, everybody has a trade. Nothing's left for arts and sciences. And Mr. Dunlap, head of Sun Oil Company, got very upset. Are you making fun of us? No, I said, I'm desperate to have some candidates that I should go ask for money. Then, I'm saying this because of one point. They said, what's the objective of arts and sciences? I said, whatever is good for medicine will be good for arts and sciences. 40 million, all right? Faculty loved it because I did not want to be fired or to be dismissed or to be sidelined, because I believe that arts and sciences is the heart of the university, and I would fight whether win or lose was not the case. So I have always had the support of the faculty and students, and also some of the trustees. But that's how this happened, that I was chosen and succeeded to my great amazement. The only thing I was worried of college for women, because women were very, 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 very afraid to be sidelined or be dismissed college. When I went to talk to head of Bryn Mawr, or president of Bryn Mawr, McBride, very, very tough woman, I was dreading she would be my only opposition if I ever tried to take college for women away. You know what she told me? It should die a natural death, said. Kill it, he said. They've been discriminating women in this college for women. The women could not take an engineering course, they could not do science, they could not do math, they had to take all kinds of 19th century things. They could audit some courses, but they could not take science courses. And the only thing good it had was Dean Brownlee, Dean of College. And I said, what's Dean Brownlee good at? Advising students, all women students. So I made him Dean of Student Advising for the whole arts and sciences. And anyway, did all the right, it worked to my great surprise. And then that led me to being nominated and selected as later 4 years, as 23rd Provost of the University of Pennsylvania.
Mihran, in March of 1991, 10 months after, you will remember, the fact-finding visit to Armenia of the UC, University of California Task Force, headed by UC Provost Bill Fraser, we were finally given a go-ahead to start the American University of Armenia. I remember coming to Yerevan with you in May of that year, and I remember Minister Vili Karutunian gave us some offices in Brusov Institute on Tumanian Street, where we started. But then Louis Simon got the building, the main building of the university. And I distinctly remember the day that you and I walked into this building. I was overwhelmed, but I wonder what were you feeling? You were the president of the university, and here we were entering this building. We had no students, no faculty, no courses, nothing. We had this huge building. What was going in your head at that time? You looked very calm and relaxed to me.
I think it was ignorance. I didn't realize what we were getting into. But I must say that before I dwell on that, with Yuri Sarkisian and you, we agreed that we should have an American university. And I accepted the challenge. And I said, no matter what problems come up, we'll have to pursue until we succeed. And the building was, I think, it was a young communists' building of some kind. And they had a library, nothing much except a big library. And there were some people who had already building and occupied various rooms. Anyway, I said, we cannot start here with this kind of a setup. But I said, we'll do what we can. So we thought we should have an announcement in the paper that we were starting a university and see if anyone will apply. Some of the first graduates are in this room. And it turned out that we had enough students to start with a group of 100 or 101 students as the first year students. Now in the meantime, somebody is coming and working on that library. And he came to me finally, he said, I finished, I'm leaving. I said, did you take the books away from? No, he said, I left them here. And I went after he left and I saw that they were all the same book, The Life of Lenin. The Life of Lenin. And I said, we cannot use this. So I remember, I don't know if some of those early students will remember it too, I remember that I passed the word around that there are these books and you may want to take them, go ahead and take them. Those books disappeared. And I said, what an interest in the life of Lenin. But it turned out that they were using it for firing their albums. You know. They were using it as material instead of the scarcity of other things. That's how the books were distributed, and I think they kept some houses warm for quite a while. We accepted it the way it came.
1979, I was a young assistant professor at UC Berkeley, my second year there. Then I heard an Armenian by the name of Vartan Gregorian was the top choice for the position of chancellor at UC Berkeley. As you can imagine, I was really excited about that. But then you declined that offer. Why?
Well, I wonder. No, in reality, what happened was this. It may sound very arrogant, so I apologize. When I was elected provost of the University of Pennsylvania, President of the University of Pennsylvania had announced his retirement in 2 years. Dean of Medicine left for Harvard. Dean of Engineering left for Lehigh. And the provost had resigned. So, and I've been there 18 months, provost. And I got a petition from faculty, including as a picture of the students, faculty, trustees. Don't go to Berkeley, we need you here. And besides, they said, it was a very important point, some of them said, you just became provost 18 months ago. You have to keep our institution. It's not good for you to be careerist. Something good came, you left, something you wanted. And I debated for a long time. It was one of the terrifying 2 months of agony. In the morning, Berkeley would call, and my friend, late Zelnick, who was chairman of history department one time, said, we have won the battle, it's yours, and you're refusing to accept. And then in the afternoon, University of Pennsylvania, how can you leave us? You must not leave us. Hubris had a role in it. I thought I was too indispensable for the University of Pennsylvania. But I had made no deal with the University of Pennsylvania, but everybody thought that if I declined Berkeley, because I made a deal to be president of the University of Pennsylvania, which I had not promised. But I had made one condition, and that was if University of Pennsylvania was to go hire somebody to president, naturally there was speculation whether I'm going to be or not, to give me advance notice to withdraw my name. I said, if you don't do it, I'm forced to resign, because they'll say, Berkeley did not know about me, but University of Pennsylvania had something on me. One of the students was here, Thompson Weldon at the time, was with me at the time. It was one of the most terrifying and humiliating, exhilarating times for my life. Berkeley took courage. Remember, my respect for Berkeley already was high, went higher. So in the middle of hostage crisis, 1979, Iranian citizen then, still, a Stanford graduate, Berkeley offering me chancellorship of University of Pennsylvania unanimously. Never happened before. And I'm now declining there. It was a very bad time for me. You're caught between moral obligation and self-importance and great opportunity. The same kind of thing happened in University of Michigan when I turned it down. Alex Manukyan and others calling me, all the Armenians, how can you turn University of Michigan down? Armenians need to come here at Michigan and so forth. So it was a personal, very terrible moment in my life because University of Pennsylvania announced somebody. I heard his name from my car radio. And then something extraordinary happened, which I've never forgotten. I felt betrayed, insulted. And I've always told my sisters, our grandmother said, everything you have is negotiable. Your looks I can question, your intelligence I can question, your size I could question, your judgment I could question. But don't let anybody question your integrity. If you sell out your integrity, you're bankrupt, you have nothing to sell. You may be rich, but you have nothing. because you're sold out. That's the attitude I brought that. I felt insulted. My integrity was questioned because the question was raised at the time by one trustee. How do we know Berkeley offered in the chancellorship? And that's one of the reasons I wrote the chapter on City of Brotherly Love, to list all the accounts in order to vindicate myself. And then, of course, there was revolt of the faculty, revolt of the students. 13 Benjamin Franklin professors submitted my name as their candidate, and students sued the university, all in all. And then faculty voted 2-1 to make me their president directly. So I met with my support. I have no interest in the University of Pennsylvania. So the day they named a new president, that's the day I stepped down as provost. And then that led me to University of New York Public Library, which is the best thing happened to me. So all has turned out very well for me. And I did not lose my integrity, nor did I compromise my position at the University of Pennsylvania. I did not live in the middle. I did not choose what was expedient or what principle I had. And that's the story. And I tell you another thing. I have never applied for a job, never been fired from a job, and never have signed a contract. My word always has been my contract all these years. And that's the one that I want to do.
Mihran, a lot has changed in AUS since you last visited Armenia. We have started a new Master of Science in Economics, and we have started undergraduate programs. Our student body has increased to 1,200 today. I know that you've been touring the campus. I know even that you have sat in a classroom. Tell us about your impressions. It's really good to hear what you...
Well, first of all, I was so happy to see the students. The faculty may not like what I'm saying, but I prefer to see the students first. And then I said I'll take the time to meet some of the faculty. The students, their faces were, smiling. They were so happy to be here, and they knew that they were doing the right thing by applying and being accepted. So that made me very happy. And I must say that some years ago, we wanted to start the undergraduate program, I should say. But we were advised not to. They said, you better establish the graduate program, let it be very solid and accept the best students from all over, and keep that moving. And don't spread your energy all over the place and start an undergraduate program. I remember, if you're going to have a file of past correspondence, I remember the note I wrote about starting an undergraduate program, something like 15 years ago. And the advice was, don't start. Now I said, this is the right time, apparently, because it's working so well. You see the students around you, you see the faculty, so happy with them. I said, this is wonderful. So I put the answer to the question is, what I see is I love. It's wonderful.
Vartan, in 1981, you resigned as the provost of the University of Pennsylvania, as you just mentioned, and you became the president of New York Library. According to Wikipedia, your 8-year service there is one of your most lasting legacies. Essentially, you saved the New York library system. You then served as the president of Brown University for 9 years. Since 1997, you have served as the president of Carnegie Corporation in New York. Of course, we can spend a whole day on each of these, but we don't have that time. So can you please tell us some of the highlights of your experiences during these years?
which years? Each job, or is it like...
Well, whatever you choose.
Well,
within 5-6 minutes.
Okay. Number one, I loved my job at the Dean of Faculty of Arts and Sciences because it dealt with students. I had 7,200 students and 528 faculty. And I loved it. And I taught. Throughout my entire academic career, I have taught. And I've corrected most of the time blue books, examining, all the, so number one. Second one I loved was University of, New York Public Library. New York Public Library, when I accepted the job, a trustee of University of Pennsylvania thought I had nervous breakdown. Said, have you seen a psychiatrist? Why would you leave Provost Street or University of Pennsylvania and go to a library where the headline is, and I was appointed, New York Public Library is going to be bankrupt in a year, and so forth. That was the reception. So I loved because I believe in the libraries. Libraries are testaments to our democracy, and I've said before, the DNA of our civilization and culture of the museums. So, and I did not do it alone or with others. I had a great team. Mrs. Astor, Society, Richard Solomon, entire philanthropic community, and Andrew High School, great mentor to me, publisher of Time War at the time, Inc. He was a great chairman of Harvard Board of Trustees. And that was a wonderful experience to make people as citizens to appreciate something. And this is one of the things Armenia needs also, the concept of citizenship, that this is your legacy, your memory, your institution. So only line that left at the library was one square block. It says, democracy and excellence are not mutually exclusive. And I always believe that. If something is excellent, it does not have to be private. Public institutions also can be great. And then, naturally, Brown I loved because it was the poorest of the Ivy League universities. And I always have seen deficits as possibilities of allowing you to make a success. So I compared Brown to Japan. I said, we have no natural resources, we have only human resources. And I compared it to Harvard and others. They have inherited, we have earned it. I also said Brown was ballerina of the Ivy League. We always on our toes, we always have to dance because we have no shoes. All right? And I never apologized for weaknesses of Brown. And as a result, in 9 years, Brown emerged, thanks to our alumni and trustees and faculty especially. Anywhere you go, if faculty is behind you, you have a vision, faculty's vision. You translate your vision to faculty's vision, students' vision, and bring pride in themselves, that they're proud to be what they are, not apologize when you succeed. So that was my Carnegie now. Of course, I have his picture in my office under Carnegie. I learned a lot from here, and one of them, the other they mentioned, they said, aristocracy, he says, like potatoes, the best part is underground. Don't tell me of my great ancestors. Okay, we know it's great, congratulations. Who are you? What are you doing? What are you doing to become ancestor in training to deserve your ancestors? And that was one of the wonderful things that Andrew Carnegie taught. Second, the person who dies rich dies disgraced, because it means he or she did not have imagination to reinvest fortune one has made back into the society. Because shrouds have no pockets. You cannot take it with you. You might as well, while you're alive, invest in society, invest in your nation, whatever it is. So there are two lessons I learned from him. And the last thing is, he was the first immigrant head of Carnegie Corporation, 1911, and the 12th one, second immigrant in the history. And I also hung his picture there to remind me it's not my money. $3.2 billion is not my money. It's his money. It's not my legacy. It's his legacy. And that's why I love the job that I'm doing, because I'm trying to do justice to my colleagues, including Diana Arsenian, my vice president for international programs. We're trying to fulfill. We're trying to fulfill Andrew Carnegie's vision about peace, reconciliation, international knowledge. So I loved all my jobs. And I'll tell you maybe for the first time why I stepped down from Brown. Every class I have addressed them, and when 1 year I tried to cheat myself, I put 2005, and I put the same speech I gave, I could hear myself, and now I tell the joke, and now I hear myself, the same message I gave last year, as a time come for me to step down. So far, I have not been bored with Carnegie Corporation. Those are my highlights.
Mihran, my last question. How do you see the future of AUA, and do you have any specific advice for our students?
Well, there are several directions the university can take at this time. And I don't know which direction is going to be the prominent one so that the community supports it. I think that one possibility would be to become an international university, accept students from other countries, and become like the American University of Beirut or something like that. The other one is to strengthen the program and give the opportunity for the students to prepare themselves for leadership after they graduate. And that would be, I think, my preference at this time, that the students must leave the university to become leaders in society. And if that is achieved, then I think we've done our job.
Vartan, you have had extensive experience with American educational institutions and philanthropic organizations, foundations. It is very interesting for us to hear your impressions of AUA and any advice that you can give us, particularly on how AUA can better benefit from resources offered by American foundations and philanthropic organizations.
Well, Armenia owes a great debt of gratitude to Armenian diaspora, especially American diaspora, for building this institution. But Armenia should not be just receiving. It should also build from within. There are many Armenian millionaires and billionaires in this country should help make national Yerevan State University great, this university great, other universities great. If we talk always about how great we are people of the book and our alphabet, our culture, our architecture, and so forth, but we never practice it. The only time we practice most of the time is the church, and I'm all for it. Worried maybe after next life or not, that doesn't matter. But the church has been a symbol of our unity and our resistance. So American philanthropy is fine. In America, philanthropy is now a must. If you're rich, you don't give, you're not respected. Even presidential elections, all candidates have to say how philanthropic they have been. Europeans can't understand. Why should it be subject of election? Whether Bush or Clinton or so forth, who has given how much to charity and so forth. Americans want to care. $350 billion a year is given to charity in the United States, philanthropy. Armenia does not have that kind of money, but it would be wonderful to see somebody say, American diaspora has done its turn. No matter what the name is, I'm going now to match. I'm going to challenge diaspora to reverse the process. I don't want diaspora to challenge us. We are going to challenge diaspora. because this is our country. After 20 years of independence, wealth that has been created in this country should be reinvested in this country. So that's why Second, our youth is our future. And therefore, everything must be done to have these very handsome and beautiful men and women who are here, to prepare them as leaders, not as functionaries, as leaders in their field. They could get all the degrees they want, but there has to be a job in this country to keep them here. But also to be entrepreneurial, to do what we have always done for other foreign countries. You look at our history, we've invested in Singapore, Hong Kong, one of the major, named after Armenians. Singapore, the first church in Asia, Armenians have built. You go to Jerusalem, you go to Paris, Vienna, all over the world we have built. This is the only region historically we neglected. And now we have no excuse. We have to invest in it. So, yes, American philanthropy, to do things for this country and for AUA especially. Not just Armenian philanthropy. And then I agree with Mihran. I'd like this to be more of an international, we have brought in international standards. And those international standards Armenians deserve. I would not water down any of the programs, because that's the worst way of ruining, best way of ruining, worst way of ruining an institution, where it increases the water in the soup when there's no meat. You can add Tabasco a little bit to taste good, but there's no substance. Anybody who neglects our higher education institutions, our research institutions, our Matenadaran, our universities in this country, and elsewhere, are betraying the country in many ways. So, what my advice to you will be, we have to set a bridge between Armenia and the United States, Armenia and Europe, Armenia and Japan, Armenia and China, Armenia and Singapore, because scholarship is universal. It cannot be compartmentalized. Learning is universal, cannot be compartmentalized. Opportunity is universal. So I think our youth, our country, deserves everything you bring. But it has to be a joint partnership, because coming from Andrew Carnegie's tradition, he said when somebody is hungry, give him fish, yes, one time. But giving fishing rod, don't make that person dependent on you. Make that person independent. And what we have to do, make Armenians independent, and you can do it, as Mihran has done it, and this is the time for Armenians to rise, say, we challenge American diaspora. You do $1, we put 2, or you do give 2, we put 3, whatever it is. We have the means to do it. And as far as I am concerned, this is already an international university. We should benefit from all the sources, European sources, Chinese sources, American sources, Singapore sources. Whoever gives, invests it, there should be equal opportunity recipients, all of it. So, and the second, faculty has to be great, because university is the faculty. Faculty is bone marrow of the university. If you don't have good faculty, you cannot be a great university. And you have those recruited great faculty, and I hope we can be able to recruit. And then my last point will be, we do this in South Africa. You're a great university, you have also to take somebody which is struggling university. Because you cannot be just shining star in a firmament which is dark. You have also to raise the other standards. So I'm optimistic about American University of Armenia. I'm optimistic about Armenia. But we must not be cynical about this in terms of giving. And Armenians in America have done a lot. They can do more for here, but they should be able to also to do. Armenians locally have to be able to come and tell you, Dr. Kiureghian, I'm establishing a $150 million fund. You bring all the Armenians from around the world to come here to study here with Yerevan State University and benefit National Library here and everything in order to make our nation center of learning. When Armenia declared independence, I thought 3 things will make Armenia great. One will be medical center for the entire region. Second, computer center for the entire region. When Agbabian was in charge of Vladivostok, the greatest, not Vladivostok, Novosibirsk, greatest computer enterprise of USSR. They're there. We should be able also to do that. And then last but not least, also in terms of literature, arts, and learning. So it pains me when our scientists don't have money. Our scholars in medieval history also don't have money and so forth. Our nation is rich enough to afford, so we can brag that we deserve Mesrok Mashtods. We deserve all the people who died for independence of this country in order to make this country once again great. And last night I spoke about this. Diaspora and Armenia are one body with two lungs. One when gets clogged, the other one has to work overtime till the other repairs. And that's the role we should do. Philanthropy from America, philanthropy from Armenia, philanthropy from Russia, philanthropy from Saudi Arabia, whoever gives, invests without condition to make this institution great. So I'd like to congratulate you as new president, as first president. I did not know it was a done deal between two structural engineers. I'm sure it's going to succeed. Thank you very much.
Interesting. I'm sure you did, because it's unescapable. Good evening. Thank you.
Look at